She accused me of the one crime that could destroy my life and my military career, all to cover up her own affair. She told her family, her friends, everyone, that I was a monster, and for months, I lived in fear. But she made one critical mistake. She thought she could get away with it. She thought I was broken. And then, she apologized for her lie. Over text, and in that moment, she didn't just give me an apology. She gave me a weapon. If you know that some betrayals cut so deep, they demand a reckoning, then you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because you're about to witness a story where justice isn't just served, it's meticulously engineered and delivered by mail. Like this video, and let's dive into how I turned her lies into my liberation. It all started, as these things often do, with a feeling that was too good to be true. It was late May of 2016. The air was warm, full of the promise of summer, and I, after 3 long years of crushing on her from afar, finally worked up the courage to ask Kate out for coffee. You know that feeling when you first meet someone? And it's not just a spark, it's a bonfire. That was us. Our first date bled into a second, a third, and before we knew it, we were official. The next 7 months weren't just a honeymoon phase. They felt like we'd found a cheat code for life. We were 2 halves of the same whole. We'd finish each other's sentences about obscure movies, debate the merits of our favorite bands for hours, and then laugh because we both ended up agreeing. Our communication was so open, so effortless, that it led to a physical intimacy that was just profound. We were both young professionals with good jobs, which meant we had the freedom to spoil each other. A surprise weekend trip just because, a thoughtful gift on a random Tuesday. It was our love language, and it wasn't just us. Our families adored each other. My mom treated Kate like the daughter she never had, and her parents would pull me aside at family dinners, beaming, telling me how happy they were that their daughter had found someone like me. It was perfect. Dangerously, unbelievably perfect. In January 2017, my life took a sharp turn. I was accepted into my country's Armed Forces Reserve program. As a combat engineer, I knew it would be tough, but I wanted to serve, to challenge myself. From February to late April, I went through basic training, and let me tell you, it was designed to break you. The days were a blur of screaming instructors, grueling marches with a pack that felt like it was filled with lead, and the constant gnawing feeling of exhaustion. There were moments, huddled in a freezing trench in the middle of the night, where my mind just screamed, "Quit. You can't do this." I saw other recruits wash out, their spirits shattered. The only thing that pulled me through that darkness was my phone. In those brief stolen moments at the end of the day, I'd see a message from Kate. "You're the strongest person I know. You've got this. Just picture me at your graduation. I'll be the one cheering the loudest." Her words were more than encouragement. They were my lifeline. She was the light at the end of a very long, very dark tunnel, and she was true to her word. When I finally stood on that parade square, sweat beading on my brow, clutching my basic training completion certificate, my eyes found hers in the crowd. The look on her face, it wasn't just pride. It was awe. It was love. And in that moment, I felt invincible. The next challenge came that summer. Advanced training. It was 3 months, June to late August, 400 kilometers away from home. Far away from Kate. She was my biggest supporter. "Go," she said, her hands on my cheeks. "This is your dream. I'll be right here when you get back." But that summer was a different kind of hell. Basic training was a physical trial. This was a psychological one. On the course, social cliques formed fast, like crystals in a supersaturated solution. And I was the particle that never found a home. I was an outcast, the quiet guy, the butt of every joke. The pranks were relentless. The snide comments in the mess hall were a daily ritual. My confidence, which had been so high after basic, eroded day by day, until my self-esteem was nothing but dust. Every night, I'd call Kate, my voice barely a whisper, telling her I wanted to come home. And every night, she'd build me back up. She was my strategist, my therapist, my drill sergeant of the heart. She reminded me of my own strength when I couldn't see it. She was the reason I didn't just pass that course. I graduated fifth best out of our entire platoon. I didn't just owe her my thanks. I felt like I owed her my entire career. She was my rock.
My everything.
I came home at the end of August, expecting to fall right back into that perfect rhythm we had. But something was off. The man who came back wasn't the same man who had left. According to Kate, I was different. The spontaneous, outgoing guy she fell for was gone. In his place was someone quieter, more withdrawn. She'd suggest a night out with friends, and a wave of panic would wash over me. The thought of a crowded bar, the loud music, the small talk, it felt suffocating. All I wanted to do was be in our safe space, watch movies, and just be with her. She saw it as me being dismissive. I saw it as self-preservation. Small jokes that I would have laughed at before now felt like personal attacks, echoing the taunts from the summer. I was walking on a field of social landmines, and it was exhausting. Unbeknownst to either of us, the isolation and bullying from my training had planted a seed of severe social anxiety, and now, back home, it was starting to bloom, strangling our relationship from the roots up. We limped along for months. The easy laughter was replaced with cautious silence. Every conversation felt like I was walking on eggshells. I was so terrified of saying the wrong thing, of triggering another argument, that my anxieties skyrocketed, and the more anxious I became, the more I withdrew, which only confirmed her fears that I had changed for the worse. It was a vicious, downward spiral. Nearing our 2-year anniversary in 2018, it happened. A tiny misunderstanding, something about dinner plans. I can't even remember what, blew up into a massive, heated argument. All the frustration, all the hurt, all the unspoken resentments of the past few months came pouring out. And in the heat of the moment, the words were said. We're done. The next 3 days were a hollow, silent hell. I was a ghost in my own apartment. But then, a text. It was her. I made a mistake. I want to try and fix this. A sliver of hope cut through the despair. We spent the next 3 weeks talking every day, slowly, carefully, trying to mend the shattered pieces. When we officially got back together, I thought we'd made it. I was wrong. Nothing was the same. The eggshells were still there, but now they were sharper. The trust was gone. Every word I said felt like it was being scrutinized, judged. My anxiety, which I had hoped would fade, only grew worse. Our relationship wasn't just damaged anymore. It was on life support. And in late July, someone came along to pull the plug. His name was John. He was a guy Kate had met in one of her classes at school. She told me he was just a friend, but she talked about him in a way that set my teeth on edge. She saw in him the person I used to be, confident, easygoing, spontaneous. While I was struggling, John was there to be her shoulder to cry on. He consoled her through our breakup and was there to listen every single time I, in my anxious state, messed up. I knew he existed, but I trusted Kate. I never for a second believed she would cross that line. How could the woman who was my lifeline, my rock, ever do that to me? Then came the night that changed everything. We'd planned for me to stay over at her place. I finished my shift at work and drove over, looking forward to a quiet night, maybe a chance to finally connect. I walked in, and my heart sank. There, on her living room couch, were the two of them, Kate and John. "Oh hey," she said, a little too brightly. John just dropped by for a spontaneous visit. He was just leaving. The air was thick with a tension I couldn't name. John gave me a smug little nod as he walked out the door. The moment it clicked shut, a wall of ice went up around Kate. She became cold, distant, monosyllabic, and in that moment, a horrible, quiet certainty settled in my gut. It was over. Our relationship was already dead, and I was just the last one to know. I took a deep breath, the air feeling thin and sharp in my lungs. "Kate," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "What's going on with us? We need to be honest." Her eyes wouldn't meet mine. She just stared at the wall behind me and echoed my own thoughts. We agreed to officially break up the next day. But it was late, and she, in a final cruel imitation of the caring person she used to be, said I could stay the night. She was still worried about me. From that moment until she fell asleep, her phone became an extension of her hand. She was glued to it, tilting the screen away from me with a fierce protectiveness I had never seen before. In the past, she wouldn't have cared if I saw her texting her friends. Now, it was a state secret. "Who are you talking to?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. "Just private stuff," she mumbled, her thumbs flying across the screen. The questions in my mind weren't just raised, they were screaming. After what felt like an eternity, her breathing evened out. She was asleep. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of dread and morbid curiosity. I knew her passcode. I had always known it. Trust, right? Slowly, my hand shaking. I reached for her phone. I punched in the code. It unlocked. And there it was. Hundreds of messages. A fire hose of betrayal blasting me in the face. It wasn't just a few flirtatious texts. It was an entire relationship, documented in real time. Messages between her and John. About how she was finally single again. About how exciting it was that they could finally be a real couple, out in public. And then, the worst part. They were laughing at me. Every little thing I did that night, every anxious word, every moment of my quiet pain, had been relayed to him for their amusement. OMG, he's just sitting there staring at the wall. So awkward. Can't wait for this night to be over, so I can actually talk to you. The screen blurred. I wasn't just reading texts. I was reading the autopsy of our relationship, written by its killer. I tried to swallow the lump in my throat, but it was a solid ball of grief. I buried my face in her pillow and sobbed. Quietly, I thought, but my crying wasn't quiet enough. Kate stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, and in the dim light of the phone screen, she saw what I was doing. Her face twisted, not with guilt, but with pure, unadulterated rage. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she shrieked, snatching the phone from my hands. She threw a fit. A hurricane of accusations and insults. I just sat there, hollowed out. I couldn't find the anger. I couldn't find the words. There was nothing left inside me but a cold, aching void. I numbly stood up, grabbed my keys, my wallet, my jacket. All the while, she was screaming at me, following me to the door. I walked out into the pre-dawn chill without a word and got in my car. I didn't even realize I was crying again until I got home and my shirt was soaked. I collapsed onto my bed and just It was the ugliest, most soul-crushing cry of my life. I called in sick the next day. I couldn't face the world. I thought I had hit rock bottom. I was wrong. The next day, my phone, which had been silent, exploded. It was an onslaught. Vicious, hateful texts from Kate's friends, her family, even her mother. They called me a pig, a monster, a predator. I was confused, reeling, until a message from her best friend spelled it out. In a desperate, diabolical move to save her own image and preemptively destroy mine, Kate had spun a monstrous lie. She told everyone that I had forced myself on her that night, that I had held her down in one last, desperate attempt to get some before we broke up. She was the victim, you see. The scarred but brave survivor. She told them she refused to press charges because she didn't want to make a circus of her life in court. She was being the bigger person. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just a breakup anymore. This was a character assassination. An accusation like that could end my military career in a heartbeat. I could be discharged, my name and my honor permanently tarnished. For the next few months, I lived in a constant state of low-grade terror, waiting for the other shoe to drop, for a call from my commanding officer, for my life to be officially over. But nothing ever happened. The official call never came. The circus never started. But the damage was done. I was an outcast, a pariah, branded with a lie so toxic it felt radioactive. 5 months went by. 5 months of paranoia and isolation. And then, one evening, my phone buzzed with a notification, a DM. It was Kate. After a few shallow pleasantries, she dropped the bomb. She apologized. She admitted that the entire story about me forcing myself on her was a lie. A complete fabrication to make herself look like the victim. But, and this is the part that lit the fuse, she said she would never ever publicly admit it. Her reputation was too important. My reputation be damned. A strange calm washed over me. The hurt, the sadness, it was all still there, but now it was coated in a layer of ice. This wasn't about emotion anymore. This was about justice. I took a screenshot of that admission, and then I kept talking to her. For the next 3 months, she unknowingly entered into a trap of her own making. She created a predictable, clockwork cycle of manipulation, and I was there to document every second of it. First, she'd complain about her life. It was always about John, how he was messing up, how he wasn't as attentive as I was, how he was selfish. She'd ask for my advice, positioning me as the wise, stable ex she could lean on. Second, she'd lament our past. I wish we could go back, she'd type. You never screwed up like he does. I was so stupid to let you go. She was dangling the ghost of our relationship in front of me, trying to keep me emotionally invested. Third, she would vanish. John would finally do some grand romantic gesture, pull his head out of his ass, and their relationship would be saved. And I would be dropped, ignored, until the next time she needed an ego boost. And fourth, the most vicious part. She would go on a smear campaign, knowing I would see it. She and her friends would post vague, passive-aggressive things on social media about toxic exes and bullets dodged. They were trying to bait me into an argument. And like an idiot, it would work. I'd get angry, I'd respond, and she would immediately flip the script, screenshot my angry replies out of context, and paint me as the crazy, obsessed ex-boyfriend. Then she would block me for a month. And then, the cycle would repeat. Like clockwork. It happened 3 times. Each time, it left me feeling emotionally drained, burnt out, and broken. But a cold, calculating part of me wanted it to happen, because each time, I was gathering evidence. Screenshots of every manipulative text, every fake lament, every admission of her lies about John, every cruel post. I had an entire SD card, a digital dossier of her deceit. I had waited. I had endured. And now, it was time. The plan was simple. Surgical. I wasn't going to engage in a messy social media war. That was her game. Mine was quieter, more permanent. I went to a local print shop and made several high-quality picture copies of the worst of the worst. Her text admitting she faked the assault allegation. The messages with John, where they mocked me on the night of the breakup. Her texts lamenting our relationship, immediately followed by texts gushing about John. The hypocrisy laid bare in black and white. Then, I went to a stationery store and bought a stack of large, plain manila envelopes. I spent an entire evening addressing them. I compiled a list of everyone who mattered to Kate, her parents, her grandparents, who she was so close with, her extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, her best friends, the ones who had sent me those hateful texts, her boss at work, her closest co-workers, her favorite teachers from school, anyone I could find a mailing address for. For each envelope, I included a simple, typed cover note. It said, "I believe you deserve to know the truth about the events of last July." What you will find in this envelope are unedited text messages between Kate and myself. I am sending this not out of malice, but out of a need for the truth to be known. I sealed each envelope. The weight of them in my hands felt final. The next morning, I drove to the post office and dropped the entire stack into the outgoing mail slot. The thud they made as they hit the bottom of the bin was one of the most satisfying sounds I have ever heard. I had just launched a social nuke, and now all I had to do was wait for it to land. It took less than 3 weeks for the shockwaves to reach me. My phone started buzzing again, but this time, The tone was very different. Some of the same people who had called me a monster were now sending me messages of profound apology. They were ashamed. They were horrified. They had been lied to, and they knew it. My favorite message, the one I've saved, was from her parents. It was long and heartfelt. They told me how deeply sorry they were for their daughter's behavior, how they raised her to be better than that, how they couldn't imagine the pain she had put me through. They begged me not to pursue any legal action against her. The thought had crossed my mind, but honestly, I didn't have the money or the mental energy for a legal battle. I replied politely, telling them I would think about it, and that they would be the first to know. And then, of course, came the texts from Kate. They were a firestorm of rage and disbelief. How could you betray my trust like that? You ruined my life. You bastard. I hate you. I hate you. I didn't reply. I just sat back, opened each new message, and read it with a slow, satisfied grin spreading across my face.
This wasn't joy. It was equilibrium. The scales of justice, which had been so horrifically unbalanced, were finally level.
When the torrent of angry text finally slowed to a trickle and then stopped, I opened her contact, scrolled to the bottom, and pressed block. I never found out the full extent of the fallout. I didn't need to, but I heard through the grapevine that she dropped out of school. She no longer has her job. The social circle she had built, on a foundation of lies, had crumbled to dust. I truly hope John was worth it. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but this wasn't just cold. It was cryogenically frozen and delivered with pinpoint accuracy. I didn't destroy her life with lies. I simply illuminated it with the truth she tried so hard to bury. And in doing so, I didn't just get revenge, I got my own life back. And for those of you wondering what happened next, this story doesn't end with revenge, it ends with recovery. I started seeing a therapist, and for the first time in a long time, I started to heal. After about 9 months, I realized I was answering the question, why am I here? With silence. I had made friends. I was socializing again. I was rebuilding. I found new passions, gunsmithing, electronics, hobbies, where I could create instead of just endure. With my new confidence, I threw myself into my military career. I took leadership courses that sent me all across the country. I even got to serve overseas on joint exercises with allied nations. I built a new family, a brotherhood and sisterhood forged in shared purpose. And through my travels, I met someone. Her name is Jody. She was a rock in my life from the moment we met, a friendship that slowly and beautifully bloomed into something more. She lived 500 kilometers away, but our connection was undeniable. One day, she told me she was moving to my city for work. We drove back together. She got a place near mine, and the rest is history. We just celebrated our 2-year anniversary. I found my real rock. Someone who builds me up with honesty, not with lies. Sometimes, the only way to move forward is to make sure the past can never hurt you again. What Kate did was unforgivable, but what came after, well, that's a life I wouldn't trade for anything. What's the most satisfying story of justice you've ever witnessed? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to hear more stories of righteous revenge and ultimate vindication, make sure you're subscribed and have liked this video. Thanks for listening.